Hey, changemakers! Thank you for tuning into the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. I'm your fervent feminist host, Raven O'Neill, and I get the honors of sitting down weekly with diverse experts from all walks of life to explore ideas, opportunities, and strategies that we can all use to hack our way to better lives within patriarchal societies. If you're ready to hack patriarchal systems and structures, I invite you to join us and help move the needle. In today's episode, I get the honor of sitting down with Renee Frojo. Renee is a brand strategist and storytelling coach with a unique background as a former journalist. She specializes in helping founders, entrepreneurs, and startups build the one thing that can make or break a business: a reputation people trust. Her expertise lies in taking raw, personal experiences and transforming them into powerful, compelling brand narratives. Please bring your hands together and welcome Renee to our conversation today. Welcome to the show today, Renee. I am excited to be recording with you. We're going to talk about storytelling, and what I love about this spin is it's not, I don't think it's your standard storytelling conversation. And I love that we're going to go outside of what would probably be considered the norm. I usually like to start off with how you ended up in this space, but on our discovery call, you mentioned how being attuned to things helped you really figure out your life, and that led into it. And I would love to start there, what that meant for you and how that supported where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I think so much of building and running a business is understanding yourself, right? Building something that is sustainable and magnetic, uh, just like those people who are who just seem so comfortable in their own skin. Like a business that like really feels comfortable in its own skin starts with a deep, profound understanding of who you are and what you're doing in the world matters. And I think when I first decided to sort of focus on storytelling as the core of my business offering, it's because I saw that through line in just everything I did. So I was a journalist, and then I went into content marketing, and then I dabbled in the creator space with a food blog, and built an Instagram audience, and then built a Pinterest audience, and got into the social media space. I was like, what was it that made all those things so successful? What was it that attracted people? What was it that got attention and got people to stick around and read the thing to the end, or follow and subscribe, or do whatever, whatever the goal was at any given moment? And it was stories. It was like a real stories that take sort of all the things that happen to us every day, we kind of take for granted, right? And we just sort of move through the days. And so many of us say, how did how did the time go by? That year flew by, the week flew by. I can't even remember what I did, yesterday. I don't even know what I had for breakfast. I'm so busy. And starting to develop that lens for storytelling, which is essentially just giving random events meaning, created so much more meaning in my life. I just started seeing all these moments. I just like recognizing these moments and these patterns that like made every day memorable, right? Kind of strung together different parts of my experience in a way that gave me meaning and helped me give the people that I'm trying to reach meaning. And I think that's just so critically important right now when we're kind of in a crisis of mattering, right? With like everything, right? Like everything. Yeah, the changing pace of innovation and humanity and AI and what's going on at a societal level and culturally, it's like um we're trying to figure out where we fit, and where what we do for a living fits, and if any of it matters. And storytelling helps you really find that that meaning and that like mattering. If that is that too vague, I can give
No,
you
no, that was super helpful.
some.
Right. It really got me thinking too, because you touched on this moment and all that is going on, but you also kind of touched on history and by talking about the tech and the state of the world now, which is so funny because it got me thinking about I had a guest on, and she, before we hopped on the call, she had asked me to read the book, or no, watch the show Join or Die, which is based on a book, Bowling Alone. And it was so funny just now that it popped into my head to think about storytelling. For so long in our history, storytelling has, it's always been in books, but it was in books, and then it moved to television, and then it moved to social media, and like storytelling has grown so much through tech, but it also has asked some of us who might not storytell to do that.
We're all storytellers. And since the beginning of time, since humans had language, right? Even before language, the only way that we communicated ideas is through shared storytelling. It's how religion started, right? It's like how government started, it's how culture and societies formed. It's all through stories that we've told about ourselves and what is happening. And yeah, I think people complicate or think like it, I'm not an innate storyteller. You are. You might not be a good storyteller necessarily, or an effective storyteller for business or brand building or whatever you're trying to do, or even like, meetings or workshop. Like there's all these applications of it, but we're all storytellers. We all told stories about ourselves. We all tell stories about the environment that we're in, and it's all, again, it's all that meaning making. But yes, I think storytelling is like become almost like a buzzy marketing word, and which is so funny to me because it's just like it's like it's just how we connect as humans. It's how we understand each other and make sense of our experiences. uh, and it's the best way to help you understand, what's going on for me, what's true for me, and what I'm trying to communicate. It's like the simplest way to, transfer one idea from my brain into your brain effectively. So we're like sticks, and there's so many different forms of storytelling. There's like metaphor, there's personal stories, there's, I guess if we're talking about business, there's customer stories, there's industry stories, there's like the future story. So many different types of ways that you can create that meaning for people. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Had a thought. I wanted to ask the question. I don't know. I was going to say obviously, making assumptions on the show as I always do, that when I hear the word storytelling, I am thinking about reading or hearing a story. But nowadays, storytelling, there's also visual storytelling. And I feel like the requirements to storytell are not just one or the other. They're now a mix, and you have to balance it. In your work, do you have a specific focus, or do you look at all of it organically?
I look at all of it and it depends on what we're trying to accomplish. But I think the foundational elements of storytelling, what makes a story, what makes a story resonant, are the same across any medium that you use it. Primarily, the storytelling that I help people with learn and understand and, use is written storytelling and oral storytelling. And a lot of it really revolving on personal storytelling, like these little life moments, that you can use as an example to highlight the point that you're trying to make, or highlight the idea that you're trying to convey. And that it's like if you see any keynote speaker that you remembered, they probably told a personal story. They didn't just get up there and tell you the facts and give you the framework that is so helpful. They helped you relate to the problem they're trying to solve through a very small personal experience usually, right? Those are the most effective. Like um I'm trying to think of like a LinkedIn post I did, right? One of I've had a lot of LinkedIn posts that have gotten a lot of reach and a lot of engagement because they either sparked conversation or they helped articulate something that somebody, like people in my industry, were feeling but couldn't quite articulate themselves, right? Like that's really what it was. That's the purpose of it. It's like you said what I've been thinking, but like couldn't say or couldn't put my finger on, like that is a good story, right? But some of the smallest things that happen in my life have been made for really good stories that kind of highlight something bigger that I'm trying to like teach or impart or, inspire or like start a conversation around. And this was one. I said, my daughter broke my heart last night. She came into my room, my 10-year-old, entering middle school, and was just sobbing and just beside herself, so sad because nobody picked her at PE, right? Even her closest friends like chose somebody else. And the story was, about how I kind of talked to her about this, about how, how it was so heartbreaking for me as a mother, but also sort of the advice I gave her that helped me get through that time. And it was such a small life moment that's so relatable because if you're a parent or even if you're not a parent, we've all experienced that feeling of not being picked or not being chosen. And especially online, it's constantly what we're trying to do. It's like, pick me. And we have to like go through so much rejection. And it's so, I tapped into a universal human condition, right? That experience of being unwanted, right? I did it in a way that like kind of highlighted like how I think and how I am as a parent and as a human and how I think and I opened up sort of a space for other people to share their experiences with us. So small story, right? Like not a big story. I got lots of big stories, right? but those are the elements that make it powerful and resonant. And now people remember that about me and have referenced it when they've reached out to book a call. I was really moved by that. It helped me think through my experience as a kid or with my child. And now I'm interested in talking to you about content marketing. You made me feel. That's it. And whether it's through humor, or through something sentimental, ultimately stories help you feel and help us feel connected through that feeling, that shared emotion, that shared experience.
Performing content is always when I'm like, not today, Satan, and I go all in on a viewpoint, and it's usually not well received by everybody.
Wait,
Yes. And
yeah,
I've been having this conversation a lot, which you said, and I don't exactly remember your words, but it's also a filter, right? Like the people this isn't for, it isn't for it. And when you put it out there in the way it was the pick me, you were talking about the whole pick me. The older you get and the more you put stuff out into the world, I think the more comfortable you get with, I'm not for everybody. And not everybody is going to pick me.
yeah. And that's really hard for people pleasers like me, who, we want to be liked by everybody, and it's not helpful though when building a business because if you can't be for everybody, you're not for everybody. And the more that you are able to articulate who you're for and who you're not, the more successful you'll be. People feel very limited by that idea of niche, right? But I was just talking to a friend who knows you, Stacy, but she's like, Raven, so excited to have you on the podcast. That's I'm so excited for you to be on Raven's podcast. It's like in the 10% now. Like she's grown it so quickly. And I was like, well, of course she has. She has a very clear stance and niche, right? Like she's not trying to be for everybody. And that is so magnetic. So I'm not surprised. Your podcast.
Thank you. Which brings me to the conversation I want to get into. It's funny, I wanted to ask questions about storytelling and men in the patriarchy, men versus women. But then I thought, as you were saying something, I had the thought too that some people want to be good storytellers, but their identities and the way they identify might give them a fear of storytelling in certain ways. I'm even guilty of it. I try to be very cognizant and careful with my words, and I'm actually going to post about it on LinkedIn's coming up. A very dear friend of mine, I shared a post and I referred to this person in the wrong pronouns. And so when it comes to storytelling, it might be easier for certain identifying people to storytell versus those who might have to lead with some kind of fear or censorship. And I want to
Yeah.
get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a really good question. And I have written and talked about this before. Um, there's such a push for authenticity, right? To show up honestly and your full self. And it is actually a privilege to be able to show up fully authentically if you are already sort of culturally accepted for who you are and how you are, right? Like, I am a white, heterosexual woman. So I'm already broadly accepted for who I am. And it's much easier then for me to show up authentically with my full story. It takes a lot more courage, and there is a lot more risk in showing up authentically. The way I wrote about this story too, the way I was trying to wrap my brain around it is, I wrote the story about how my 5-year-old, now 7-year-old, redheaded Mila is authentically an asshole a lot of the time, Like, she's got a hot temper, a short fuse, and she she definitely is my more challenging child. And I love that. I love that fire about her. I love her strong-willed, nature, that she's willing to go against authority. Like, I think all those things might benefit her in the long run. She's not a people pleaser, okay? They're also going to hold her back, right? And she can't be her authentic asshole self in class because it's disruptive, and she needs to participate as part of this group and this community. In civilized society, you have to kind of squash some parts of your personality. And so it's just like this fine balancing act. And some of the most iconic leaders throughout history have been people who didn't fit into society's version of what's acceptable, and went out there anyway, and took a lot of risk for that, right? Like Harvey Milk, because I'm in San Francisco, is coming to mind, right? So I do think I agree that it's a little bit harder when you kind of fall into sort of more of the, not fringes, but like the the people who say
Anything non-cis white.
anything. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a decision that you have to make. Like, I am willing to, kind of put up with the risk and the potential for pushback from the people that aren't my people. But there's a huge opportunity again to, like, really just attract the right fit people, right? The people who see you and identify with your struggle, and see you, want to be part of that conversation with you, and want to be part of the fight, if it's a fight. So I think it's just like how much risk tolerance you have, and how much you're willing to take, and uh, I'm sure there are ways to skirt around it. There's telling other people's stories. It depends on your goals. It all depends on your goals. It's like hard for me to give like a blanket advice answer, because I don't, each individual is showing up in different places on different platforms for different reasons. And you need to be very clear first before you start like just going out there and, creating a public platform on what those goals are. What are you trying to achieve? And is this going to help you achieve that outcome, right? So I think it needs to be kind of a nuanced, tailored approach depending on those things.
I love that answer because I'm going to highlight something. For those tuning in, if you don't have the goal in mind and you don't have a plan and you go out there and throw spaghetti at a wall, you could get lucky, but the chances are slim.
Yeah.
Like, there's this idea that you can just go out there and do anything you want and be a little crazy and unplanned, and you'll be successful, because we have looked at those people so often, we don't realize that they're far and few between, and it probably took them a long time to get there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So going back to the diversity conversation, because I just want to look at, for a second, men versus women, because I do still feel like if we are talking about your quintessential bro, man,
Yeah.
use my words wisely there, they probably have an easier path to storytelling. And I wonder, with the ways they do things, if there are ways women can utilize some of those tactics to more easily feel comfortable telling their story and also just telling their story.
Yeah. Uh, Well, when I think of storytelling for all the bros of the internet world, it's very formulaic. And they all seem to follow the same template where it's like, I used to be this way, and now I am this way, and this is how you could be this way too, right? And it's the hero's journey, where they are positioning themselves as the guide, and it's really it's I guess it's still working for them because they're still doing it, maybe, or maybe they just saw what's his name, Justin Welsh, build his
There's
empire,
the other guy that
and they're doing it, and they're seeing if that works for them. Where so I think that creates a lot of opportunity actually for, again, this more like authentic storytelling, and trying and just storytelling being essentially noticing what captures your attention, what shifts your perspective or your thinking, and how that could potentially benefit the people that you're trying to reach. So that could be from a conversation that you had, at a coffee chat. It could be from a past experience that you learned something, and now you do things completely differently because of, experience and insight or mistakes, right? Usually mistakes. I think women maybe are, I don't know if this is a gender. We are all like feel like we have to perform, right? Perform our best selves, especially in different contexts. And it's a shame because the way that we really connect with people is through seeing their humanity and seeing their flaws, right? And like seeing their their missteps, and being able to talk about those openly. I don't know if women have an easier time doing that than men necessarily, but it is absolutely an opportunity. Um, Also, maybe there's an opportunity too because women are like, we're conditioned to be more comfortable talking about emotions, right? Like in our emotional state and all this stuff. So that is a huge opportunity that we have then. Okay, like you already feel comfortable talking about it, now talk about it publicly, right? Because ultimately, again, coming back to like that's what we were going to connect over. Um, Either make me laugh, make me feel, teach me something, and ideally all three in one go. A good story really does those things effectively. But I also like to think of storytelling online just like as a anecdote sharing, right? You're building on a greater narrative, a cohesive narrative, and it takes a little bit of strategic thinking to do this. But it's also just a practice. It's a practice of noticing what you notice every day, and then figuring out why you noticed it, right? Or why it mattered to you and how it could maybe matter to the people that you're trying to reach. Um, and usually it's like, what did that make me feel? I noticed this. Usually it made me feel something to make me notice and stop, right? What is the thing that it made me feel? Why did it make me feel that way? What is that tied to? Is it shifting something for me? Is it teaching me something? Is it just like illuminating something? Do I have a question about it? I think it's really just like pursuing curiosity. Like storytelling is like pursuing your curiosity around all the things that are happening, and then like sculpting it into something that articulates something for you. And we could do like a live example if you wanted. We could try it.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in 1 second and do that. That would be really fun, like a live case study. I will say, I don't know if you do this, but in a different life, I would have been a comedian, which I'm not very funny on this show, but I would have been a comedian.
I would.
And I took a comedy writing class, and in taking it, the instructor had asked us to walk around with a little tiny notebook in our pocket or purse. And anytime something even slightly out of the norm that we could pull from came up, we had to write it down in that moment. And so I don't know if that's something you recommend, because you talk about the noticing. Great. In one in one thought, not the other.
100%. Comedians are the ultimate storytellers. And they're the ultimate storytellers because they're the ultimate noticers, right? But you need to, yes, you need to have a practice of not noticing, not just noticing, but capturing what you notice, because yes, it goes away. So one, I do that. I absolutely do that. I have my little Apple Notes app where I'm constantly capturing moments, ideas, points of connect, like whatever. And then every night, I have this thing that I borrowed from Matthew Dix. It's called Homework for Life. And it's where you take 5 minutes. It's not a journaling exercise. It's not a like writing everything about your day, but it's taking 5 minutes to think about if I had to tell a story about today, what would it be? So it's like essentially, and it's just like bullet points. It doesn't have, you don't write the full story, just things to jog your memory when you want to come back to it or need to come back to it or need a story to draw from to connect, the dots on something. And the way that you find that is, okay, again, it's that what's something that made me feel today? Either feel confused or happy or inspired or sad or angry. What's the main thing that made me feel today? And there's a nugget, a potential nugget of raw inspiration for a story. And you do that every day. And this is the practice of like giving your life meaning. So every day at the end of each day, the years aren't flying by anymore because you notice something meaningful every single day, right? That gave you pause for one reason or another. So that is one little practice of noticing that I highly recommend, just like your writing class. That's what every single successful comedian you ever hear on an interview says, that they have that every single day practice of like noticing something that was funny, right? Or out of the ordinary. It might not even be funny in the moment. You make it funny, right? Was that Ira Glass that said, stories happen to those who tell them, right? Like it's story. You have to be able to shape it into a story. But they happen to all of us every single day. So
Especially if you have children.
what's that?
Especially if you have children.
Oh my gosh, children are the best source of inspiration for it, but you definitely don't need children. You just need to live. You just need to go out and do stuff or just pay attention during conversations if you're stuck in front of your computer all day. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we were gonna do a case study, and now I don't remember what it was.
Okay, so we can let's try to do a story. Let's do a story for your audience. Okay.
Okay.
What is one of the biggest pain points or problems for your audience?
Existing in the patriarchy.
Existing in the patriarchy. Okay. Okay. Existing in the patriarchy. Okay. What is a very specific moment from your life where you really felt this actually, let me back up. What does just existing in the patriarchy make your audience, let's pick one person, make them feel? What do they struggle with there?
I was about to say, like, maybe downtrodden, but then I was like, that's such a depressing word. I mean,
What
existing.
what does it make them feel? Does it make them feel limited for
Yes,
opportunities? Does
that's
it
a
make
great
them
word.
feel
Limited.
okay?
Limited.
Limited. Limited in what ways?
Limited in their ability to get ahead.
Limited in their ability to get, okay, so they feel held back from opportunities that maybe men have because of the patriarchy.
Correct. Let's go with that for now.
Okay. What is a very specific moment in time where you have felt held back from an opportunity because you're not a white cisgendered male?
Oh, ah, let's not say
Or limited.
limited. Yes. So back in corporate life, I I somehow got signed up to write really amazing articles and news for someone in the company who should have been able to. And it was quite bothersome because I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it or that I was like, hey, I would like to write these stories for this guy. But that was probably one of them. drove me nuts.
So you couldn't write the stories because you weren't a male? Did they go with somebody else who was a male?
No. I wrote the stories for a man who should have been able to write them himself. I was a marketer,
Uh-huh.
and I was asked to write for a very high up person who happened to be a man.
As
And I
opposed
wasn't actually asked, I was told.
as opposed to you being like you being able to put your name on those
If
stories
anything, yeah.
for yourself, you had to sort of ghostwrite it
Mm-hmm.
in the scenes, even though all the expertise and well, maybe you were taking some of his expertise, but
No,
really
it was
it was yours. It was yours, but needed his face on there.
yeah.
Oh man, yeah. And how did that make you feel?
Oh, I hated every second of it. The only positive to come out of that is that some of the stuff I was given makes for great comedy. Someday I'm just gonna say it on a stage.
Okay, so what did you learn from that experience, or what did you take from that experience?
I mean, I wouldn't say at the time that I learned so much, but now looking back as the person I am today, I should have maybe questioned why he couldn't at least start it and then I could edit it versus me writing for him. I could have asked for more pay because the pay disparity that also caused resentment too, because I knew how much he made as one of the high ups in the company versus what I was making as the person, you know,
Getting that visibility, yeah, for it, or credit, really.
or pay. Like that's
Right,
the
right,
thing,
right.
like the
Yeah,
balance,
yeah,
right?
credibility, all the things. What, so what advice would you give to somebody now? What advice would you give to your former self in that position, or somebody that's in that position right now that is that is in a corporate setting and or in any setting, and because of their gender or race or maybe age or any of the other reasons that that hold us back, that the patriarchy holds us back, like what advice would you give?
If you feel like you were made for more, you probably are. You could approach it differently. I would even say for those who are more entry level, and I wasn't entry level, I was mid. Mid. That's such a like Gen Z thing to say, mid.
You're so hip.
I have teenagers. I have a Gen
There
Z.
you go. There it is.
I would say that in those positions, like negotiate more at all turn. Like don't be so afraid of losing your job. I mean, yes, that is a legitimate fear, but most times there's some kind of way to negotiate. And there's all these gray areas and all these places that you might not know. And so look for those opportunities when you feel like you are not getting ahead, getting what you deserve. Look at other ways to approach reaching better parity.
Okay, so there's your story. There's your story. When I was in my 20s in corporate, I was asked to write on behalf of, yeah, a white man in a higher up position than me. So they took my words, my expertise, my background, and they slapped someone else's name on it. And at the time, I was too scared to stand up for myself and advocate for my worth, right? If you are in this position, right? Like if your whatever, your gender, your race, your age is like holding you back from getting the recognition you deserve, right? Here are some things you can do. Or here's what I would have done, or here's what I would have told my younger self in that moment. And then you have a strong sort of like, what is the thread? What is like the main takeaway? What's the like nugget of this, right? It's you have actually more power than we give ourselves credit for because we've been silenced, because we've been put in this box and we forget that we have agency here, right? We forget that we are actually empowered to advocate for ourselves, right? Something like that, But that's just it. So you take a main problem that you feel your audience had, that from, doing your research and your experience has. You try to identify the main sort of underlying problem underneath it, or the main emotion or the philosophical problem behind it, right? Like the internal struggle, ultimately. Usually there's an external struggle and an internal struggle and the core of that. And then you pair it with a time you've felt that way, or you've experienced that, or a client of yours has experienced that, or a customer of yours, right? If you don't have a personal experience to draw from. And then you make your point, you highlight your point through that experience. So now I learn a little bit about you, your background, how you think, what you've gone through, the mistakes you made before, the lessons you learn from it, and what I can take away from it. How do you feel about that?
I'm now going to go back and listen to this myself a million times, to the questions you pull, like the threads you pulled to get me to answer, and apply it to all the things. That was just the formula right there. Like,
It's the formula.
I'm in the show now.
It's just, yeah, it's asking the right questions. It's having the right prompts and being able to know which questions to ask. But thinking about those threads, that's it. What matters to you, my audience? What do you care about? What do I understand about that problem? Where have I experienced that problem? How can I help you think about this differently, right? Or give you a tool or a framework, or, a way of overcoming this thing. That is basically the formula.
Love it. I love the formula, but I also love the authenticity that we pulled from the story. So I got to get your opinion on, because this is my most recent call to arms battle, is all the garbage online that's like, I made $1 million last week, and before that I was on the streets. This is how I did it. Do it just like this. It drives me insane. How is there a way to combat that, or do we just carry on with our storytelling?
I mean, if you really want to fight that fight, yeah, you could actually engage with all of those stories and be like, I call bullshit. Or ask a question that throws them off. But I think the way to combat it is just, this is why I'm so passionate about helping people tell their stories. I'm like, the more authentic, genuine, real human connectedness we have flooding these channels, like the better we're all going to feel. It's going to just like, let's create the counter tide movement to that. And so much of those people are just, they have fake influence. They're in comment pods, and they're in their little bro echo chambers, and it's like, you know what, it makes me think of Mel Robbins. It's like, let them, let them. Also, maybe I don't need to fight that fight, like, I'll let them, right? And I feel sorry for the people that end up falling into their trap. But that'll be a learning experience for them. Hopefully they don't lose too much money. But if they're smart, they will take that and use that as their own learning experience for the next person, right? Anyone who's like not, so many of us can sniff that out from a mile away. So they're not your people, So the choice is yours. It feels like, what fights do you want to fight? I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, I can't fight all the battles. I can't care about all the things. Where can I make a difference, right? Where can I have my small impact on the world, and like make the change happen that I want to see? I've just like really honed in. Like, I've just gone smaller and limited myself. I'm like, I don't want to fight all those battles. So it's brought me a lot of peace and joy. and but it's your platform, like, this is your fight. You have taken up the fight, So I mean, I think it'd be kind of hilarious to see you be like, I call bullshit.
Really appreciate that. Maybe I'll do it a couple times and just see how it
See,
feels. I really appreciate that, because you said you could go in and ask questions in the comments. I'm like, yes, that is what I will do. But then you circled it out with you don't have time. Maybe that's not healthy. I'm like, maybe that is the way. I'm going to try it on though. I'm going to just throw a couple out there and see how it feels.
I think that's a great way to experiment anything. I'm like, just do it, see how it feels. Just do it. I'm like, tell a story, see how it feels. tell a more raw story, see how it feels, right? You can always delete it later, right? But like, it's like little baby steps of like testing something out and seeing how you feel about it. I mean, I will say for you, I feel like because you have such a strong voice and stance, I think you finding your people, like other people that are feel equally upset or like their feathers are ruffled because of those people, like I'm like, I don't care, let them. But you are like, no, I will not let them. This is not okay. I think you'll attract a lot more of your people who feel the same way, actually. So I think it could, strategically speaking, for you, I think it could actually be a good move as long as
Okay.
it feels good. Yeah.
We're gonna test it out. We're just gonna try it on. I like that.
Because you're going to articulate what others are feeling, but maybe don't
True.
want to say because they're afraid to say, because they're afraid of the repercussions. They feel like it's risky. So you're giving a voice to people who aren't there yet. So
Yeah.
I think that's powerful.
I like that. Thank you. Well, this has gone super quickly, and here we are. Like I said, we're up on time, just like I knew we would be. I love to end the show with 3 hacks. So, 3 hacks for our listeners related to storytelling, ideally not giving it all away because you have given so much away on the show already.
The other hacks. We already talked about noticing and then having a system for documenting what you're noticing. Okay. For just becoming a better storyteller.
Yeah.
For becoming a better storyteller. Okay, here's one. Beginnings and endings are like the most critical piece of your story, right? Because the ending is what people, what they remember, what they leave with, right? It's like that premisey and of bias. It's the psychological principle of recency effect. We just have very short attention spans and memory, so we remember the last thing that we heard or read. And the beginning, obviously, because we're in a world saturated with stuff. So whether it's a movie or an article or a podcast or a video or a LinkedIn post, like you have a second to capture someone's attention. And in copywriting, they say the sole purpose of the first line is to get people to read the second line. So the first line must get someone to read the second line. Is it doing that? Okay. To tell a good story, a lot of times one trick is to put make sure your beginning is as close to the end as possible. So there's usually some sort of transformation that happens in the story, just like the one we told about you, right? There's some sort of learning, there's some sort of insight, there's a change. That's what makes a story a story. Oh, Jurassic Park, for instance. You know exactly how that movie's going to end because of how it begins with the guy who's like not interested in having kids and he's having a problem in his relationship with this woman who wants kids and he's like, I don't like kids, they smell. And by the end of it, after he has all these experiences with his 2 kids almost getting eaten by dinosaurs, he's like, let's have babies, right? Like that's exactly every single movie is like that. Whatever the problem is in the beginning, that's going to be the resolution in the end. Same with your little short stories that you can tell on anywhere. So start as close to the end as possible in your beginning. Give maybe a hint of the transformation or the learning. What's another one that's an easy takeaway? What's another good storytelling hack? I feel like I have so many. Identify the emotion. I feel like we talked about all of them.
What
Yeah.
if you only could ask one question of the process? What's the most important question you ask when you're going through looking at all the things you need to pull into the story?
What did that make me feel? Or what did that make them feel? And why does that matter?
Okay,
Why does this matter?
I love that. We had make sure you have a strong beginning and end, make sure they're closer together, and that they somewhat touch to connect. And then why does this matter? Ask that of yourself as you're creating any kind of story. That was so good. All right. For the people tuning in who want to reach out, want to connect, want to work with you, you also have a course coming up. If they're not in time for that, hopefully you have another one in the future. But how can they find you, connect with you, get it going?
Yeah. few more seats left in my 5-week storytelling cohort. It's short form storytelling for brand building. So we're going to dig into all of this and actively work on your business and the people that you're trying to reach, and come out of it with a ton of content every week that you can actively use to grow your brand around your story. And then that is also an ongoing community. So after the 5 weeks, it's turning into an ongoing monthly community with like master classes. I'm going to bring in comedy writers. I'm going to bring in futurists, like all sorts of people to really help look at this holistically, and like just very interesting and fun and entertaining and life skills. But other than that, I have a newsletter every week, A Good Reputation. A goodreputation.online is where you can find it, where I always start with a personal story and then kind of highlight a greater lesson about personal storytelling and brand building through that story.
I will put your links in the show notes. Renee, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to join me and have this conversation.
Thank you so much, Raven. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. For all the juicy deets on this episode, be sure to check out our show notes or give us a holler on Instagram at Hacking the Patriarchy Podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support this podcast, don't be shy. Please share it with your friends. Sharing is caring after all. Lastly, if you'd like to lend your personal support, please take a moment to tell the world about it with a review on your favorite streaming platform. We'd be forever grateful. Tune in again soon to enjoy a brand new episode of the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. And until next time, keep on hacking, my friends.